Hi, everybody. Welcome to another demo. We haven't done this in a bit, so it's good to be back. Thank you all for joining us as well. My name is Stjepan. I go by Stefan, and I own two small businesses. One is focusing on AI education and implementation in companies, and the other one is focusing on managing technology in your firm. Now, I'm not going to go into too much detail about any of the businesses, but if you're interested in any AI education for yourself or for your team, check out aiinaec.com because we have some really widely known courses and consulting services as well. But the courses are going to go on sale again from June 9th. So you're going to be able to join our advanced programs. Now, I just wanted to keep this short because I have two very exciting guests that already started, maybe talking about the ideas and all of this stuff in the back room, in the background before the live call. But yeah, without further ado, Eli, Jefferson, thank you so much for coming live.
Hey guys.
Hi folks.
Thank you, Stjepan.
Well, thank you for being here. It's exciting. Like how maybe we should just get right into it. Can you tell us a little bit about yourselves, meaning that, who you guys are and what is Bimrock?
Sure. So I'll start, and you can go, Eli, and then we'll talk about Bimrock. So hi guys, my name's Jefferson. I consider myself to be like the construction guy at the company. I'm a COO and one of the co-founders, but effectively I've been in the construction space, in the construction industry for a little over a decade. My general arc, I basically started as I'm a first generation immigrant. That means a lot of my uncles and family members were laying tile and installing roofs. And then I was fortunate enough to go to a bunch of fancy schools. I got multiple degrees from MIT, multiple masters, a bunch of these social accolades. And at the end of the day, I got back into construction because that's where my family, my roots, and a lot of my know-how was. So I almost had an existential crisis. What is this dude with 4 degrees from MIT going back into construction to lay tiles and install roofs with his family? But it was the start of I started a construction company, then started a construction tech company, and then from there I've just been operating the space for a long time. So I think it's one of the most philosophically and intellectually challenging industries to be in. And it just so happens that now we're at this inflection point with AI, the adoption of technology, and just the realization that a lot of structural factors in the economy and in technology are pushing for innovation. And I'm just excited to be operating in the space now that it's cool.
Nice. Eli, what about you?
Yeah, so I don't come from the construction or the AEC. I was in medical world for a while and in data science. I did a lot of data science and software engineering. And now that I'm in the AEC, construction, MEP, whatever you want to call it, I just see so many opportunities, so much work that needs to be done. A lot of automation, a lot of room for improvement. And it's a big challenge because everything here is in 3D. You have all these different, these firms work in massive projects and they all have to coordinate. So it's not an easy task. It's not something you can just write a piece of software in 1 year and make be a great success. But there's a lot of work. It seems like people really need and are really looking for these tools. So it really gives us a lot of motivation, and I'm learning about the BIM and MEP and all these things all the time.
Okay, well, nice to have you guys here. My question, I guess, the next natural one is that when was maybe Bimrock started? And it's mainly from that perspective of do you think it's more because it naturally fit within your vision and you guys started a conversation and it's let's do this thing? Or is it more because AI is allowing us now to be faster in development, so let's do it now,
I think AI is just a benefit. And if you think about it, it's because the internet happened, do we all become internet companies now? No, it wasn't really born out of that. It's the structural problem exists, that coordination and the headaches around coordination start with design, and then that feeds everything downstream. So me personally, it was walking through a fabrication shop for a large top 10 general contractor, especially in the specialty trades, and realizing that they literally had pieces of paper that they printed out every morning to like organize their project on a digital Kanban board. So each of us at the company had kind of like different starting points of like when we actually saw how massively inefficient this problem was. The one of the stories that I go back to is like a large specialty contractor literally printing out sheets of paper, and they have like a digital Kanban board. So it started from just the fundamental problems, and then AI just happens to be a tool that you can incorporate into like this overall harness, but it isn't the thing that leads to the opportunity.
All right, no, fair enough. No, I'm also always surprised by the like adoption and the slowness of it, because I still see emails like, just in the signature saying like, please think of the environment before you decide to print this email. And I was like, when I just first got a job, I was like, who prints their emails? But apparently there's a whole range of people who actually still do, which is, just a bit crazy to think about today. Anyways, okay, Bimrock. What is Bimrock?
So Bimrock, we're a foundational platform for like the MEP industry. The simplest analogy that I can give is that we're a combination of like Figma plus Cursor specifically for MEP. So when you think of Figma, you think of like this ability to have intuitive, interactive UI UX, where they're basically competing against a company like Adobe that hadn't innovated for a while. But UI UX, the ability to like edit pixels on the screen, that's the same analogy that happens in MEP and coordinated design. You're moving around pixels to express certain design intent that ends up manifesting itself as like coordinated 3D models. And then you have Cursor. Cursor is basically like this harness, this IDE that has your existing Word document intelligence embedded in, but you have the ability to track your differences, look at your documents, and be the authoring layer. So it's a mix of like you create cool things and you design them with an intelligent layer that has tracking, coordination, and like referencing your documents specifically for the MEP industry. But at the end of the day, that's just an analogy to say that at Bimrock, we fundamentally like creating tools and like a harness to give engineers the ability to like elevate their judgment, because there's a lot of like digital pixel pushing and inefficient workflows that happen online. So we're not here to replace or to automate anything that is the human judgment. It's simply there's like a high overlap of work that is very, very manual, that no longer needs to be very manual, and that is also unintelligent. It just, you don't have firm standards, you don't have engineering like references. And so rather than like replace humans, we're augmenting the engineers to execute their judgment to express it through the design of MVP.
All right, interesting. Yeah, I know you also want to, you have a presentation. Want me to show it?
The presentation, I mean, it's really, I mean, I'm not going to get too much into the marketing side. So at the end of the day, we're just a foundational platform. I can talk about what it is, or we can actually just show you the demo, which is cooler. It's like we can have the conversation around the demo and like
sure. Let's get right into it. Whatever works for you guys.
Yeah. So let's just hop right into the demo, and we'll go. So I'll stop sharing my screen.
Okay.
Do this.
Yeah. There we go. Eli's.
Yeah. This is my screen.
Yeah. I think the only preface that I'll give is that while we are a platform that is trying to cover the entire scope of like the MEP design space, which includes like the architecture, the engineering, the coordination, and then the documentation phase. Right now, we're focused on just the documentation phase as like the entry point that is a repeatable and like scalable problem across like many firms. Documentation is like this handoff process where you've already expressed your design intent, but then your next phase is to communicate what that is further downstream. And that's often done through tagging and annotations. And you've already done the hard work to like make the design. The next phase is like, now how do I make sure that any human that reads this design actually understands it based on how it was intended to be understood? And so the tool that we're going to be demoing right now is just that. It's AutoTagging. It's specifically for the documentation part of the workflow, but it's just one sliver of a multi-phase product and like a multi-phase vision that we have to be that Figma plus Cursor for the industry.
All right, interesting. I mean, yeah, please walk us through what we're seeing right now. It's like Revit with, I guess, an MEP model full of tags already.
Yeah, a whole bunch of tags. So the product AutoTag has a lot of different bits and parts to it. The main part is the profiles. But I thought it would be good to just start with something very visual of the final result before we sort of go back and rewind. And if there are any questions, of course, let me know. So this is just one floor that has been, I just tagged this now with AutoTag. This is 1,121 tags, and it took just over 2 minutes. And here's another floor also that I just tagged, a little tidier and slightly more space here. And one thing to note here is that, okay, so we have the duct tags, and we try to place the tags inside the ducts, for example, but if there's not enough space in the duct, so we can sort of pull them out automatically. Now, if I just hit Control Z over here, so the tags should sort of jump back to where they were before this tagging job was run. I might have to hit Control Z again. Oh, there you go. Okay, now the tags will sort of jump back to where they were. And I don't know if this is very familiar to some of the engineers or not, but what we see here is a lot of tags. You know, some of them, things move during the project, and tags, elements move around. So some of the tags are sort of nicely placed by the engineer, and then you add some stuff. So maybe there are tags that are not as nicely placed, and some of them are overlapping. So this is a real project of some of our design partners, and we can see that some of the tags are overlapping each other. Some of them can't really be seen. And so we're in this sort of situation of we have a floor plan, and we have a bunch of tags, and we want to improve their location. So I go to manage. Let's start here with this button up here, manage profiles. And here are some of these tests I did. So if I just do new, and we have this little interface, we can just click OK, but it's just to save some time. We only load things from the view, but we can load everything from the model as well. And we load, of course, the linked. And now on the left, we have all the tags. Now, an important point to stress here, these are tags. If I click ducts, these are tags that are loaded within your model, the user's model in Revit. These are the user's own tags that are found. Now, we have a shortcut button here, add all tags from view. So what happens is we found there are 9 different tags in this view that the user, the MEP engineer, has already added. There may be a bit of a mess here, which actually this profile editor helps to sort of make a little clearer. Why do we have 2 different duct tags? Maybe we only want this one that has 239 appearances. Maybe this is a mistake. So it also gives you sort of a nice overall picture of what is going on in terms of tagging in this view that we just saw. And we can already run this, but before we do, I can just maybe click one of these tags, and we have some extra. We have all these different filters we can do. If I only want to tag, for example, well, with Air Terminal, it's not so relevant. But if I go to the duct, with duct, we can decide to tag only horizontal elements, only vertical elements, or both. Element types, system types, all specifically Revit things we pull directly out of your Revit model. Some Revit filters. These are also filters from the user. Whatever the user has, we just pull up. And this is the main part here, inside element and then around element. So basically, we try to put the tag inside the duct. Usually ducts are large enough and they have enough space. But if there's not enough space, we pull it out, and so it's not sort of completely overlapping and hiding the duct itself. And so every one of these tags can have different. We can also say, hey, I only want to tag ducts of a certain length. And so a very powerful profile editor, which we can go into more depth perhaps later if there are more questions. But I can just save this for now. Just give it a name, HVAC test. Okay, yes, already exists. Fine. Now I already have these existing tags, so we have these free run AutoTag buttons. So I'm going to click the organize existing tags because I don't want to create tags yet. And I'll just hit it now. We can actually use, I just ran this earlier, so we can use the cache, which will make things slightly faster. Now it's going to run. I think it's going to take 1 minute. There's already a server is already processing things. If there are any questions now while we're waiting, it's a good time.
Yeah, I think I'll just provide some context of like the tagging tool itself. Like the biggest value that we've talked with our early design partners and our users is that the ability to like standardize your firm's profiles and like logic for communicating information. At the end of the day, documentation sits at the end of the design phase for the MEP industry. It's where you're supposed to be handing off information downstream to either fabricators, teams on site, or even for internal review. And often when you use Revit's tag all button, it gives you tags, but they're all messy. They don't really follow any actual rules. And so the importance of being able to standardize and customize your profiles according to like your own company's standards and have that be repeatable is where we come in. And so, yeah, I think that's just important concept. Like you basically write the rule once, and that rule is applied to multiple views, multiple disciplines.
Yeah. So the job just finished running. 541 tags, took just under a minute. Oh, we have this, which could be helpful, which sometimes tags are not centered on their origin, which causes some sort of an offset with the leader lines. And this tag is 29% offset, so you can actually find this tag and sort of sort it out and reset it to so it's straight, and its leaders are not all sort of crooked. Now we can move on to this. Oh yeah, when I hit Control-Z, it just deleted all these tags. So say I'm starting fresh, and we have a floor plan now without any tags. So I go once again to Manage Profiles, and there are no tags on this floor. So if I do what I did before, add all tags from you, nothing happens. So instead, I'm going to go to Pipes. This is a plumbing plan, and I want to add one of these pipes, BT pipe. Imperial, maybe I'll add also like a pipe accessory. Maybe for the pipe, I don't want it to tag every single pipe, maybe only pipes that are not too short. So let's start with 10 centimeters. We can also switch to inches. And yeah. Now we try inside and then around, but with pipes, usually there is not enough space inside. Still, it doesn't really slow things down to keep both. I can just say profile as, call it BT pipe, and plus pipe accessory. Okay. Now I'm going to want to hit the create and organize all tags because we want to create tags. We want to create new tags. So these two will do the same thing basically, but this is if I only want to move the newly created tags, but now we have no tags anyway. We could also hit the cache just so it's slightly faster. Instead of 2 minutes, it should take 1 minute with the cache. Yeah, Jefferson, is there anything you want to say now?
Let's talk about like the batch jobs, because I think the idea is like, so let's say you've already understood how to create the profiles, and if there's any questions, we can actually go into more detail for all of the profile creation. But on the right side, you have the ability to batch create jobs. So it's this thing where it's not just one view. You can apply your logic to multiple different views and multiple different versions of what you want to present across multiple views. So as long as you queue up what you want tagged, it's this idea of being able to set it and forget it and go have a coffee or come back. Notably, what it doesn't do is it doesn't slow down your activity in Revit. So while we have all of these automations happening in the back end, it doesn't actually slow down the work that you have in Revit. If you want to talk about that, I mean, I don't know if Stjepan, I don't know if you eventually will ask about like data and processing and things like that, but there are some cool things that we are doing algorithmically to speed up the work that happens like on the desktop so that we don't effectively clog up your compute for these batch jobs to happen. We can always go into those in more detail.
Yeah, we already have some questions. I see them popping up, so nice to see that as well. I would start with just the first question because what I'm thinking immediately of is like, Autodesk opened its Revit API to, MCP servers and MCP connections recently. So, like, maybe, I mean, I know we're going to get to this question later, but like, don't get me wrong, but why would I go with Bimrock to do this, and why wouldn't I try to do it myself with like Claude or something through the MCP connection?
Yeah, the answer that I have to that, or it kind of starts with like an analogy. This is just personally how I see AI kind of developing right now. When I was first experiencing like CAD, this was probably mid 2000s, and like spreadsheets in Excel, there was always this one guy in the office who had these really sick macros. There's this guy who was like the Excel wizard, and it was like, oh, can you send me my macro for like pulling this information out and like standardizing it? I think that's the analogy that I use right now, that Claude and AI, generally speaking, increases the baseline of the tools that you can create, but we should distinguish between a commercially viable, enterprise safe, scalable, shareable tool as opposed to a macro. So this isn't to discourage anyone from saying that you as an individual can probably create and understand the workflows given the Revit APIs and the open APIs that we have now and like the MCP servers, but that is a very different category than saying this is a scalable, safe, private enterprise solution that you can download and like share across a team of like 500 people. So I think on one axis is like the scalability. On another axis, it's like the security that provide. And then the third angle is like the customization or like the level of sophistication that we've built into this tool, that it's not simply a like Revit MCP server. Like we have pretty sophisticated like infrastructure that allows us to like not slow down your computer. Like the fact that you can run this tag and it literally does not slow down your activity in Revit is like an infrastructure choice. So there are these different aspects that individually might be replicable using Cursor, Claude. Like I do this vibe coding stuff all the time, but that's very different from having an enterprise ready, secure, and scalable tool.
Okay, no, that's a really good answer. I fully agree, because it's like, while, as you said, the baseline moved, and it's always going to be this techie person in the office who's going to be testing that, and maybe they can get something to work. But as you said, to make it scalable, stable, secure, that's still a big kind of jump from like a personal test to something that's actually working at scale. So.
Yeah. And we've seen like the archetypes where the hacker engineer works for a team of a certain scale. So like if you're a freelancer and you run your own firm and you notice the bottlenecks, but maybe your trade-off is like how much time or resources, like maybe you don't have the money to buy an enterprise solution, like the risk reward of building it internally versus buying it makes sense for you. But when you're an enterprise company and you have, maybe it's your top engineer that knows, or engineer or designer that knows the firm standards, that knows like how things should and should not be tagged, that has influence and the perspective to like motivate and teach other people, is their highest impact in like learning to use Claude and then learning to like make this enterprise safe and then to make it scalable and to make it so that it doesn't slow down Revit. It's just the risk reward or the value curve looks very differently. So then rather than taking like your highest paid engineer and shifting them to like vibe code a tool, that just isn't realistic. So there's always a spectrum, and I think Claude Code and these agent tools are better for the smaller scale, the individual freelancer who has a very niche workflow that they're particularly annoyed about and want to replace. But then that very quickly falls off as you start taking into account a bunch of other considerations of large scale companies.
I agree. Listen, we have a few questions. Do you want to take them now, or?
Yeah,
sure, yeah.
Yeah, all right. So first we have, it's just Camilo saying hi. Camilo, good to see you here. Thank you for joining us live.
Hi.
But then we have Nenad, which is one of our previous participants here. Let me just move this like that. On Mepaya, and he's saying it's nice to see you. Also all the best to Bimrock and their effort. Question: if the pipe and ducts do not change in size and airflow, etc., will the tag feature tag only once, or will it happen in the project
Yeah.
I think we
Well,
understand.
first of all,
go into that tool.
Yeah, go in the profile. This this result is a bit funky because I didn't realize we had two very different styles of tags, so it came out a bit weird. But what we do, we cluster the tags. To answer your question, so what we have in our profile editor are some filters. Say let's add these tags, but this pipe accessory tag was just.
Yeah, I think I'll rephrase the question slightly if it was unclear. I think
yes, please.
They were trying to ask, like, for a particular like element, let's say it's like a pipe. There's this case where properties associated to that element may or may not change. One of those elements could be diameter, it could be length, it could be material, it could be system type, or it could even be a curve. We know that this is like a recurring challenge where it's like you want to communicate a significant system change, but not do that manually. So we break down that system change into the different categories and filters that you're able to apply for that systems change repeatedly across instances in a particular view. So if a pipe changes from 8 centimeters to 10 centimeters, you want to be able to filter for that specific system change. Those are all expressed as like customizable filters, and like that's what Eli is sort of going through. So I think that's the question that Nena was going at, is like, if things change significantly and you want to express that as a significant change, do you have that? And yes, we do. And then there's an opposite to that of like, if the system doesn't change, you don't want the same tag on that view 20 to 30 different times. So we also have the inverse of that, where you allow you to standardize only on the first significant change, or different variables of that, of like every 25 feet or every 30 feet or some length, so that that logic for the repetition is ingrained in this.
Yeah. So we have different filters for different elements. If it's a duct, this is a rectangular duct. It has width, height, and elevation. The pipes, it detects that this pipe is round, so this little icon is not relevant here, but it has a change in diameter if we want. So if I do change in diameter for the pipe and for the duct, I can do, I don't know, maybe change in width, change in height, or change in elevation. All these could trigger if one of these happens. So we get a new tag. And yeah, and say I also want to only do horizontal ducts, say only of a certain length of 10 centimeters and more, and maybe the same for the pipes, 10 centimeters. Usually I think they like it longer than that. Let's call it test demo. Okay, now close this up. If I hit Control Z twice, so the first time we'll just bring the tags back to where they were before we ran AutoTag. So your work is, you can always recover the stuff. Then second, Control Z will remove the tags because we created all these tags earlier. And now I'll run the profile again. Test demo. Let's use the cache for speed. Yeah, and now it should.
And while we wait, maybe we can cover another thing as well.
Yeah, I see the questions popping up already.
Nena is also saying great and bravo. Okay, yes, we have Nirvan here. It says LinkedIn user on the live call, but I know it's Nirvan. I was checking the LinkedIn as well. Does, I guess, this tag, AutoTag, share a total quantity count for equipment? Do you work with HVAC distributors and their biggest time sink is doing takeoffs? So
yeah, so I'll take this question because it's sort of like his question is implying if we serve a different type of ICP or like a different use case. So I'll frame it with that, with saying Bimrock right now, we're effectively a tool that is for a BIM designer, engineer, modeler, someone that is working at a consultancy, consulting engineer, a specialty contractor, or an internal BIM team at a large general contractor. We do not currently serve nor plan to serve distributors or folks that are in like the extended supply chain. Even if the overlap of the problem is similar to them, we're very much focused on the workflows for the MEP designers, modelers, and engineers. So as an aside though, does that mean that some of these elements might be useful for other people? Yes, but we're not explicitly supporting them on our roadmap. So the ability to count tags or count numbers of things, that is a feature that we have, because when you tag something in Revit, the logic behind it is saying, what type of thing are you tagging? Based on that type of thing, how many instances of that thing do you have? And we have a running list, because then we need to feed it to the algorithms to say, these are the tags that correspond to this Revit element type, and then positioning them like in the white space on the model. So we have it implicitly, but it's not an explicit feature, for example, for fabricators or people that work in the supply chain to help for the takeoff process. That being said, there are versions where we can create a template where it specifically tags on a specific element that is maybe useful for that distributor or person in the supply chain. Like you only want to tag the SKU if that's a property that you have in the Revit model for a particular HVAC diffusers, so that when you look at that plan, you only see the diffusers that match this logic and that SKU, and therefore makes it easier for you to count. But we don't take that a step further in saying, here is now a deduplicated single unified list of the schedule for that particular HVAC diffuser, so you can then go look in your inventory and map that. That slightly extends the workflow of the customer we're looking to focus on.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, so here are some results. We can see that there are a lot less tags because we applied these filters, which are very good to use, because then you have a clearer picture of what's going on. You have less tags, so they are less in the way of one another. And this is basically the result. It is never perfect, and but what we try to do is find the white spaces and that are closest also to the elements, and place the tags there. Sometimes in groups. This is sort of a cluster of tags if the elements that they tag are close together. This one jumped quite far away, which is a shame, but sometimes it's just a little difficult with all the things going on, and it sort of tries to find the best result and give you a good head start for this for the project.
Okay, nice. Yeah, you guys tell me, what should we do? Do you want to continue with if you have more things to show, or you want to continue with questions?
Yeah, Eli, you kind of run.
I can show one thing. Jefferson mentioned was the batch tagging, where basically, if you have a lot of profiles and you want to run them on, or one profile, you want to run it on many different views, you can have this sort of shortcut thing. And another thing is this sort cluster button. So if I have this cluster of tags and I just grab them, it's actually easier if we sort of pull these buttons down, and I can do tag selector also. So it just selects the tags. Then I want to have them here, for example. I think it's better if they're here. So then I can hit sort cluster, and nice. It switches the order. It's a fast, easy tool to use. Then you also have align elbows, and if I want to align the elbows, maybe space out the tags a little bit. Maybe also add this guy to the cluster, and then hit sort cluster again. Space it out. I don't know. Align left. By the way, align left, align right. These tools have been added. I think in Revit 2026 now. It's you can work with these, but before that, these are helpful.
This is really cool. But maybe because we're also waiting on Revit right now, there was a question from Cassandra here. What happens if Revit freezes or crashes during the tagging process? Does this cause an issue with the plugin? Does the process start from the beginning again upon restart?
Yeah, you'd have to run the program again, because yeah, we put a lot of effort into making sure that we don't crash Revit, right? That is the worst thing to do, and obviously we put in a lot of safeguards around our own software so that we do not interfere with a lot of very basic things Revit does. But if Revit crashes for some other reason, or you close Revit before the job is done, so the job is lost because like the request returns from the server, but it doesn't find the client. So you just have to run it again, but it's no big deal. Like nothing will. You won't be in a situation where something is sort of stuck or frozen because it's waiting for a job to come. We just say, okay, the job did not arrive. There's a timeout, and it's fine.
Yeah, maybe tying it specifically to like the pain point or like the use case of someone who'd be like, oh my God, I pressed the button, I expected it to be done, and I came back and it didn't happen. So like within the range of like actual possibilities, if you're running a single job or like a smaller job, it's on the order of 0 to 1 or 2 minutes. So if something crashes, it's as simple as like pressing the button to run the automation again. But because you already have the profile logic set, you're not redoing anything other than like pressing a button to like run the job again. So on like 90% of the use cases, the downtime is going to be waiting another 2 minutes. Or actually, no, let me not say waiting another 2 minutes, because Revit just loading in and of itself, at least on my personal computer, it takes like 20 minutes sometimes to like fully load the model and everything. So the minimum time will be as long as it takes for you to reload Revit and then press the button and then wait 2 minutes. So like the time that you wait to run the Bimrock job for the tagging relative to the spinning up the operation of of Revit itself is minimal. It's like, well, what, 1 minute of waiting versus 20 minutes of waiting for Revit to reload. But technically speaking, we do not share or cache the job for it to continue, because the trade-off is like you press the button again, and in 90% of the use cases, it'll take between 0 to 2 minutes for you to have this happen. If you were to queue a large series of jobs that could, in theory, take 10, 20, 30 minutes or longer, that's a particular use case where you'd want to make sure, hey, your computer's plugged in, like the internet's stable and all of these things, because yes, that would be more frustrating when you've queued up all the jobs and something outside of your control crashes Revit, but it's not within our own system or function that's causing that issue.
Okay, fair enough. There was also a question about these background tasks from Jack, asking how do tasks running in the background not affect the performance of Revit, or do they? And can the jobs be moved from project to project?
No, it's a good question, because it actually we do affect the performance of Revit. The thing is, we try to affect it the least amount possible. So we have to take out the tag shapes and like this view. We don't take any three-dimensional data or any more sensitive data, but just like the two-dimensional image we have here. And we have to take that out of Revit, and that sort of makes, when you see the mouse turn into a blue circle, and Revit is sort of stuck for a bit. So that definitely happens. Once the server is working, which is most of the job, so Revit is released until the tags information of where to move them comes back, and then we move the tags, and then Revit is stuck again for like 3 seconds. Of course, it depends on your computer. My computer isn't very good, so it could be a little longer. But yeah, we definitely do hold up Revit at certain points when we're taking out information.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'll do a shout out. Quick shout out, Jack. Thanks. We chatted in LinkedIn briefly, so thanks for giving a comment in the feed. And yeah, and I guess qualifying the answer is like, do we technically impact Revit? Technically speaking, yes. But in the grand scheme of like the performance of a user to be able to continue doing their workflows and still being effective within Revit, the qualitative answer is no. Because technically, we take information in that moment where we're drawing information from Revit, like getting the tag information, like the metadata, that does clog it up. But our algorithms and effectively the fun compute stuff happens outside of the Revit ecosystem or outside of your local computer on our servers to free up that basically compute locally. It's not like this runs on your computer within your Revit instance and it freezes all of your work during that 1 to 2 minute or even 3 minute or longer job.
Nice. Yes. All right. Cool. Please go on, Eli, if you have a...
Yeah. One little point here. There was the filters that the question about the filters that came up. So this sometimes it's not really that clear to understand when a tag was supposed to come up. Did something change? So in this pipe, we can see that the pipe keeps the same diameter. So there was only one tag placed here, even though we have a few pipes. So this is just showcasing that filter that we were using earlier. And yeah, so we went over these different tools. Oh, you could also choose whether you want to tag linked elements or only current elements that are not linked. So the default, I think, here is current only, but there's no issue in tagging linked, and this is only what we tag. So regarding what we actually overlap with, we always consider the links because obviously they are visible. But you do have an option for certain categories to be overlappable. So if, for example, the architectural stuff is visible, it may be gray and may not be very visible. And you say, well, I don't want your tags to try not to be on the architectural stuff because then they won't really find a good place to be in. You can just be on the architecture stuff, which means you can untick the architecture or whatever else you want if it's structural. And then this allows the tags to be on top of walls and so on if they're sort of not very visible in gray, which is the case in a lot of MEP floor plans. So then the tags, it will just be that much easier for us to find where to put them. But this is linked and unlinked alike. Like there's no difference in overlap between links and non-link elements.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for showing us this. When we were up to, like, I see that you're looking at like so many details and settings, which is something I really appreciate. And Neda here has another question of like, is there an option to skip tagging elements shorter than, for example, 500 millimeters? Usually we don't need tags for these since there are many small elements in the project.
Yeah, great question because I have an answer. Yeah, so if we add our tags, so one of the filters here is minimum element length. And actually I can showcase one of our features if we click estimate, it sort of tries to count how many new duct tags there will be if we tagged and created new tags. So okay, more or less 290. It's not precise, but if I then say I want actually 500 millimeters, so 50 centimeters, and I go back here and estimate and see if it works. Okay, duct element pass filters 176. So now I can see, and it tells me we already have 147 tagged, but basically, without this filter, we would tag 290 maximum. With the filter, 176. So you can get more of a rough idea of how many elements would be tagged, but it's not very easy. We don't really know the exact number until we run the algorithm because, you know, so if you have this change in dimension on as well as minimum element length on, so we will always tag if there is like a conflict between them. You tag the element obviously, but the estimate is not always 100% known before you actually run the job.
Yeah, I think one maybe general statement to address Nenet's point is that when we're designing, so AutoTag is its own current commercially available tool, and we have other tools that are like in development as part of the platform. But what's important to underline is like the philosophy. Like we're not a black box automation that produces you all of these results without fine tuning. It's almost like the opposite. Like the reason why we are so detail oriented is because at the end of the day, we're simply a tool that allows the engineer or designer to come in and choose to express their judgment at any level of granularity. So like we are detail oriented because like we have to be. This is a product for engineers and designers who they themselves are detail oriented. So even though we have automations to streamline the workflows, every automation, every piece of logic, every filter is something that is always overridable, customizable, selectable, like and the software UI UX expresses that. Maybe it'll take a couple more clicks in some cases versus another, but just for example, this case that you have the ability to have change in orientation plus dimensions over or under a particular length. those are two types of logics that are both customizable in any fashion, right? So just want to highlight there that it's not black box automation. It's tools with rules that you can change and edit to your firm's standards.
No, I love the level of customization you can get into. This is awesome because as you said, you can I think you thought about it in a really good way when it comes to hierarchy of things, because like you went from like, hey, this is a simple add-in for Revit to something that you can you can have this profile and that profile and this size and that size, and you can stack jobs on top of each other and so on and so forth. So I think that you really thought about it well in terms of hierarchy and how to do stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, Stjepan. It wasn't easy. I'll tell you something. It's we realized at some point that AutoTag, this tool, if it's like 80% good, it's not enough, because if like you don't do the job properly, and it's still not 100%, I can see. But 80%, 90% is not good enough, because then people say, okay, I can't trust this tool. I just have to do it manually. So we're always trying to improve it and to have the location of the tags as good as possible and all the filters that can be possibly used to have them. And we're always happy to also hear improvements, because we really want this to be useful and for people to enjoy using it. And placing these tags, never really clear. It's not like an easy answer of where's the best placement for the tag. It could be on this side and it could be on that side. And something that could look for a human eye as the best location is how would you define that to a computer, that this is a location? Because also the leader line has a lot of importance here of what lines it cuts. So we were dealing with all these things. It's not simple. It's always changing. But yeah, that's a big part of it.
Yeah, maybe an analogy I can give as well, because I use Claude often for like the business case for like doing websites, making promotional material. And recently I was frustrated because we're making a new design. So I'm painting this analogy to say this is sort of like what we don't do and why we have a series of discrete rules that are like if this then. Is like if I were to tell Claude like, hey, shift the text to the top left of like the image, it will because it doesn't necessarily have every piece of information as a discrete variable to reason, it can hallucinate, and the hallucination in this case is just create a result that isn't the one that you intended, because you as the human expressed some version of what you thought you had in your mind with the geometric placement, but the model itself didn't understand what variables or reference points you were taking into account. So kind of ties back to originally, it's like, oh, why can't you just do this in an MCP server? It's because the MCP server doesn't necessarily have the discrete layers of rules that builds upon each other for you as the human to trust that your outcome is based on these discrete set of rules that you have customized. So yes, you can go say, hey, Claude, like put all the tags like in the middle of the ducts. Good luck, because then you're very likely to still have to clean up 30.
Yeah, it will work. It will work one day. One day that will be possible, but we're not there yet, right?
Yeah, and people are still struggling with a lot of work in Revit, and this is typically with AI these days. Like, you can get somewhere, but it's as you said, like, maybe it's only getting you 50% of the way, maybe it's 60% of the way, and you're like, I can't really trust it. Let me do it manually. Yeah. So speaking about trust, I'm actually super interested in like, what's the actual AI part of your app, and what's the like automations and algorithms that work in logic compared to AI?
Yeah, so technically speaking, this is a series of discrete rules. So there's like a large spectrum of like what is AI and like what is automation. So you can position this as like intelligent automations, but we're not using commercial AI in the sense that the general consumer is accustomed in their framework to think of like AI. So we're not an LLM like Claude or like ChatGPT where you can chat to and like it does the intent, but you can think about it as like intelligent automation because we're a series of like discrete rules that build on top of each other. So auto tagging as a tool in of itself, we wouldn't want to position as like an AI native tool. It does have a series of like rules and algorithms that use complex computation, but the future roadmap or some of the tools that we actually have like in beta development use the input or the information that we're able to infer from these plans into true AI automations. But it's important to structure as like there's AI for space there's AI for like law and text, and there's like AI for like physics, like the 3 different domains. Like when you think of AI, people are like, do you do AI? I'm like, well, do you mean LLMs? So it's like, we're not an LLM and we're not a foundational model for LLMs, but we do use LLMs to classify and put things into buckets that are text. And then we have a separate series of what you call AI, which is like machine learning algorithms to route something from A to B throughout space intelligently. And there's another set of AI where it's like physics-based constrained equations to maximize something so that when you have heating and cooling loads, like you've modeled it and it's generative. So are we AI? Yes, but with a very big asterisk depending on what it is that you're talking about. And in this particular case for AutoTag, it's more appropriate to say we're a series of discrete rules that runs through an automation loop.
Yeah, nice. But what about data? How do you take it for like training of these complex algorithms, or is it more like, when you work with customers, do you train on their data, or where do you get the data to train your models from?
The short of it is we categorically do not. We don't. I mean, if you want to get into the technical aspects of it, but
everyone's after data nowadays. Everyone wants everyone's data.
Yeah.
And companies, I feel like I think twice when I download an app, and they always want my contact list, right? Every single app for some reason is asking for your contacts. So
that's a good one.
In order to know like the best place where to put the tags, we have to have this sort of image of all these elements. So we take the image, it's like a 2-dimensional data shot of the lines and the tags, but not the 3-dimensional data. So we don't take what we do not need. We still have to take something. And we're working on all kinds of MEP tools, which are 3-dimensional, which are not yet in production or not yet live. And maybe Jefferson, if it's part of this call or not, I don't know. But a lot of interesting 3-dimensional data, which we do not take, but is part of other projects which we're working on. But for the AutoTag, the only thing we send is this 2-dimensional thing, which is what we have to know, including the category of what's going on, just to know what we can overlap with and what we cannot.
I think the category statement that we have is that we take, or the philosophy behind how we approach data and like generally training is, we only take as much information as we need to deliver the function or the feature or like the value that we're promoting in this case. So right now, we're basically organizing tags in white space. You define the rules for what is the allowable white space for those tags to be placed in. And in order to do that, we need that information. So an example of the data to calculate that white space is the distance between the edge of a line on, like, I don't know, let's say that HVAC unit there, and the space between another line or another element. So we have the white space, or like the shadow, that marks out like where the allowable space for our algorithms are to place your tags. But we do not look at the 3D model or like the Revit model itself and train on that. That doesn't mean that we don't learn or that we don't have a method or a framework in which we can learn, but we are choosing to express that as a series of discrete rules where you as the firm can either customize it and establish that as a rule, or for enterprise partners who are looking to create a new view. Like we've had this conversation with a company in the Nordics where Nordic tagging is like, if you're familiar with like Swiss design is like the most elegant kind of like timeless version of architecture, magazines, and art. They basically take that same philosophy and apply it to like the documentation. So documentation in the Nordics is basically like a piece of art, as in like it literally looks like a piece of art. That's the way that they intend it, because it's easy to communicate. So we have a process where we're trying to customize the rules for their firm's standard and elevate that so it's not training data, but we're learning because you are telling us that these are the rules that we need for our product to deliver the consistent value in this way. So do we have a structure to learn? Yes. Do we take information we do not need? No. And then as a segue, there are other versions of how this data feeds tools that are in the pipeline. So AI and LLMs for like rapid design, or the idea of sketching something or communicating intent and then generating that. We're very sensitive to the needs of a particular client, and only if they want a solution that actually has access to their data, is on-premise, goes through like a secure let's say IT, legal, and procurement process, we can't customize it, but that's an opt-in, and like it's a feature set where we are choosing to engage in a deeper partnership to customize things specifically for you and your firm. But as a categorical, like, do we train on your data? We can say no. We just use the information that is minimally needed to deliver the result, and you get to choose how you engage with us.
Okay, that's nice. Thank you so much for explaining that, Jefferson. I just wanted to say one thing is that I really love hosting these shows because I get to meet founders like you. And when I see how Eli is looking at these drawings and like, this Revit model so passionately about like tags and stuff, I'm like,
Yeah.
No,
If only my friends at home knew how passionate I am about tagging. If only they would stop talking to me.
Yeah.
Okay, I have two quick questions that I want to get within 3 minutes because I want to be respectful of people who need to jump at the full hour. One, is this it from Bimrock today? And it's fine if it is. I'm just wanting to learn what's your next step, what's the roadmap, what are you working on, and so on.
Yeah. So the roadmap operates on this philosophy, like we're a Figma plus Cursor for the MEP industry, and that boils down to two things. You can design things with intent, with the ability to like edit and understand like all of the judgment that went into the decision. So we're not a black box like autonomous solution, but we chose to start with documentation because documentation is the one recurring thing at a handoff process for any company. And at the end of the day, it helps us begin a relationship, go through procurement, through IT into legal, and just basically sell and partner with you. But that's a means to an end that delivers value today on the path to a larger kind of like rapid design or generative design platform. So this is effectively the sticky notes. The next version that we're releasing in private beta with a couple of customers is like the Figma sketch to design or intent to design. That's done automatically. So, but for all intents and purposes, like AutoTag is the tool that we have right now. If you're interested in a lot of the other cool stuff and the passion and the nitpickiness that we address for software design, and assuming that we carry that philosophy over to the rest of the products, please talk to us. But yeah, AutoTag is a documentation tool on the path to iterative and generative design as a category of tools.
Okay, very nice. For people who are interested in studying with you, what's the best way, and how much does it cost, and how are you in the phase of working only with partners? Are you open for people just to download the app and work with it? How does it work?
We went through the tedious process of getting launched on the Autodesk App Store. So AutoTag itself is, you can download it. All the commercial terms of service, they're actually there. We've only been out for a week and we're already having a couple of downloads, so we really appreciate it. But AutoTag is a tool that in and of itself is commercially available today to freelancers, to small teams, and to enterprise clients. So if you're a freelancer, you can download, there's a free trial, and then there's also a limited set of functionality that you can have that is free forever. And it's $49 a month for a single freelancer. But if you look at the ROI on that, is like, does it save me 1 or 2 hours a month? And that pays for itself. Then we have a function or a category for teams. So if you're a team between 10 to 30 people, you probably only need a license of like 5 because we're a floating license provider. We don't have one license for every person that's in a seat, which is a frustration with tools and software in general. So a 5 floating license subscription will likely support a 10 to 30 person team because not everyone at the same time will be doing tagging. Maybe it's only the interns that do the tagging. So you just need to do, the subscription for the interns. And then if you're an enterprise client that needs to deploy 200, 500 or more seats, we basically start with the pilot program where we work on a demo project or in like a gated data environment to like benchmark the value for your firm and then approach pricing from that perspective. But it's easily downloadable. You can get the value from there. But for the enterprise clients, we'll customize profiles for you. We'll make sure that the ROI and the metrics are there. And then we use this as a basis to engage in partnerships for the other tools that we actually have in the platform as well.
Okay, awesome. That was just on time, actually, before the full hours. That's great.
Nice.
Thank you. For anybody, please staying. If you have any questions, please ask us. Eli, I want to give you a chance, another chance. If you have anything else you want to show or want to talk about, you can. Otherwise, I have questions I want to ask.
Yeah, no. There were a few. No, it's okay. Yeah, I showed a lot of things about AutoTag. There's always like another thing to show, so it's a
Yeah.
lot of information. Yeah,
No,
that's
but
all.
that's all. I see that you're very detail oriented. You both of you guys. I mean, I think you have a really good combination of like thinking high level about things and like how to run this as a business, but also of the technical level on like how to actually go into the nitty gritty details. Because
Yeah,
again, your customers, I always say like your customer is not an unknown person; it's your wife, and you can't lie. You need to be really like specific when you explain things. So it's yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, I think I see that in you. So that's I really like that. So and I have many startups on these shows, as you guys know. So
Yeah.
um,
appreciate it.
yeah. Listen. Next question. Now, I just asked you for people who are ready to start with you. But what about people who are like, let me try this myself, or maybe like, what are the competitors? Like, why should somebody choose you and not go with any of the competition here, if there is any? And how do
Yeah.
you approach that?
So there's kind of like two layers to that. The first is just like the philosophy in which we approach how we want to create tools for the industry. Like if you look at marketing and like AI as a whole, it's like there's one angle where it's like AI will replace your jobs. We fundamentally don't believe that as a philosophy. We see that AI is a particular tool that is used in this harness, like the structure and the architecture of our software, in order to elevate like the judgment of the engineers and the designers that do the work. So as we express that through our product, we're not a black box automation solution. We are a tool that incorporates intelligence to let you, as the user, do more work or focus on the things where your judgment is more applicable. And in this case, with AutoTag, it's not spending the time to like manually move around pixels, but it's to establish rules for your firm so you can then move away into another aspect, which is to actually do engineering and design work, right? So one is like the philosophy is like we're not a black box automation solution. We're a series of platform products that we will launch to elevate your human judgment. We're not trying to say like click a button, forget it, we'll do all the job for you. Like that's not what we do, and that's not what we intend to do. We give you tools to like be a better human and like literally do the work a little bit better. And then the other one is just like practically speaking, like where we're starting. We are trying to create a platform, multi-product platform that touches every phase of the engineer's workflow. So not only is this how we approach engineering and how we approach tools, but we're trying to develop tools on our roadmap for every phase of the engineering workflow, from when you get a coordinated architectural or structural model to when you do the design engineering to when you actually do the documentation and the coordination and the handoff. So if you're a BIM engineer, modeler, designer, we're building a platform for you in particular. And we cover the full workflow of that. We just happen to start with documentation, which is like at the end of the equation, because that helps us close the loop to make better tools at the beginning of the equation.
Okay, nice. I like the vision for sure. What about the runway? Like you said, you have design partners. You also like but now you're talking like you can download the license for free, and then it's like something is a subscription. So I understand you have different models of how you work with firms, which is completely fair. But do you have a runway that like if I invest in this tool, you're gonna be here for at least like I don't know a year or so? Can I trust that, or like are you just like high level explanation is fine?
Yeah, and I think the obvious answer is like we're a startup, right? And so every startup's always going to have a sensitive answer to like runway. But the truth is like we're confident that we're going to be here for a very long time. We already have a strong pipeline of existing design customers and interested like investors, and like we are actively raising for our pre-seed. So there's like yes, we're a startup that's raising money. That's literally what startups do every 12 to 18 months roughly. So it's always a question. But in terms of are we confident? Will we round? Like yes, we have a set of design tools that is already on the roadmap with a strong already adoption. How do I say this? It's exciting to like hop on calls with customers. They're like, yeah, we get this tool. Like it seems so awesome. So it's like, dude, like the people that we're talking to are just as excited about what we're doing. So we feel like there's like a pull from the ecosystem as well. And like this is just one tool that we have that is creating excitement on the larger roadmap for the next 12 to 18 months. So like, do we have a runway? Yes, but we're not worried about it. We're confident we have a long suite of products that are ready to launch.
Okay, nice. And talking about that excitement that what you just explained, is this like what makes you proud to work on this? Like, what is the maybe the proudest thing you've like done so far in the terms of this or personally?
Yeah, Eli, I think you're the one that like wants your friends to be, oh my god, I'm in the weeds of like working on a sticky note product for the construction industry. I was like, yeah, you take this.
But we put a lot of time into this AutoTag product, and our design partners really love it. And one funny thing for me was that like most of the effort was into the main AutoTagging product that tags the whole floor plan, right? And there was and our small little tool, the sort cluster thing, which just sort of sorts a few tags, was actually what they loved most, and what made me most proud. They're always going on about that one. When we were like most of the time, you put an effort into what you think will save them the most amount of time. When sometimes the customer actually wants the gadget as opposed to the real thing. But whatever. And yeah, and seeing their reaction, it gives us more motivation to work on things and always try to improve it. And they give us feedback. So yeah, it's been a long journey.
We had one of our early design partners say this is like the hottest thing in Sweden, or the coolest thing in Sweden. I know which, because like I think it's like Sweden is cold or something, so I wasn't sure if it's like, is this cool or is this hot? I was like, you would have thought it's a tagging tool that it seems very simple, but when you think of like the scale and the coordination of like the handoff and like how many people it touches, like this is just the handoff process to the things that actually get done in the field. You just get encouragement from when your customers tell you you're doing something good.
Mm. No, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's a basic thing. Like everybody wants to save their time, especially as you said on mundane work or like road work, such as putting tags. Like, are you really producing value, or you're just like doing like come on. So and like this tag all thing in Revit, everybody whoever tried to use it knows how big of a headache it can be at points. If it's a simple drawing, sure, like there's a few tags, but like these designs can get so complex, man. Anybody who's worked on a bigger project, especially on a like MEP level, like high level, this gets crazy. So yeah, I think that the tool is very timely. Maybe it should have been there for like 5 years ago, but here we are. So it's
well,
better.
We're here now for the next 5 years if anyone that wants to partner us. So
nice.
It's never too late to get started.
Yeah, true. All right, guys. I basically asked all of my questions, but we have a couple of questions from the audience about looking ahead. Sami here is asking, what do you see 2 years from now regarding AI in the MEP field? MEP is really coming behind other disciplines. Thanks.
Yeah, there's again like market context. So I think Dustin Schaefer from Henderson Engineers, he has like a really good framework about this. He's like a Substack called I think Design is Decision, and he sort of like puts this quadrant of like where is AI good, where is AI is bad, or like how should you think of like AI? And I think it's my personal belief, it's just like another tool. And so it's like philosophy as a company that we develop tools to elevate human judgment and make you better designers and engineers. So I'm not necessarily on the hype train of AI will replace a bunch of jobs, because the reality of the industry is like we're engineers already overworked and backlogged, and companies just have more work that they can take on. These tools simply help codify the baseline rules, like ASHRAE, SMACMA standards, like the National Electrical Code. Your firm has a series of standards that just like aren't codified as the intelligence layer for across your tools. So you're having to repeat these decisions every time across every person. So it's just a different way of phrasing it, is that like if your firm has standards and ways to do things that have worked over time, the set of tools that come from here on out is like codifying those as rules on top of which the floor is raised. So I don't think necessarily be afraid of your job. Like modeling is going to change, designing is going to change. So there's going to be a lot of sets of tools that are going to change the way the MEP industry works. But I think it's for the better, because then we can actually appropriately size systems that don't have a safety factor of 2 to 3x. So you have a chiller or like a fan cool unit that is sized more aggressively because like no one wants to take on the liability because they didn't have the time to go like double check the numbers. So what is the future of AI for the MEP industry? It's fundamentally like better designed buildings that lead to better operated buildings. That's like I think that's a nice future to think of. Better buildings means a better world. Like cool. Like why? Because we have the tools that encode that intelligence to enable the humans to do that.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jefferson. We have a question again from Cassandra, and it's for you, Jefferson, asking how you come she's curious about how you came from a contractor background and then decided to build a tool for design engineers.
Yeah, so when it says I came from a contractor background, it's just like my family was contractors. So like we were the guys that were laying tile and installing roofs. So like I got to know that by default. But then my first like real kind of like job was like as an engineering manager at a large EPC firm. This was Técnicas Reunidas. It was like a Spanish exchange. And my first job was there was like literally looking at reviews and designs. And so Revit and CAD was still so super new. I was like the one that was responsible for like giving them a digital twin of like of the engineer. It's basically a PowerPoint that we're building. But the frustration started with like my first responsibility was like, you're an American, like you know Spanish though, so like go read the manual. And the manual was like in Spanish, and they needed to translate this to English. So my job was literally to read through thousands of pages. And I'm here as a freshly minted MIT grad. I got all these degrees. I'm like a hot shot. I'm like young 20-something thinking, why is this firm literally throwing me to translate tags? Like what does that make sense? And like, it wasn't even digital. It was like, I was looking at a floor plan that was across two pieces of paper, right? It's like you have a notebook, but the notebook's like this small, and like you're looking at the floor plan. It's like not even on like a digital like tool. I'm like, let me like go make sure that diameter in Spanish, 10 centimeters translates to the other thing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do this for the rest of my life. So then that led me down the whole tech angle.
Mm-hmm. Okay, nice. How did you guys meet?
Through our co-founder Yoni. So he's our CEO.
Yeah, our CEO.
Yoni and I, we both were classmates from MIT. We had been chatting for several years about like challenges in the space. And then Eli and Yoni, they've been working together. They basically shipped product and built a geospatial solution for like the agricultural industry in like their previous startup.
Yeah,
so basically, two tech nerds, and I'm like,
agritech. Yeah, agritech. Now we're in the big business. Now we're in the AEC business. Agritech is not good.
Yeah, no, this is a big business now for sure. I mean, it always is, MEP especially, because like, you know, the thing about it is that nobody likes to look at it, but if it doesn't work, you feel it and you're like, that doesn't work, so it needs to work. So it's really, really important to work well. So whatever can help MEP to do that, I don't see why not. And I think that the MEP engineers are, I mean, it depends who you talk to, but like they're the younger ones are definitely more open to it, to like innovation, than the older generation, from what I found. Just because they used to do these things anyway. As you guys know, like we used to design buildings like thousands of years ago with no technology, and they still stand. So
the two extremes that I've seen is like one of my like industry mentors. He's like an architect. He's a principal. He's been around for a while, and he used to design the plans when you had like a little gadget that hovered over the 10 feet by 10 feet like semi-translucent pieces of paper, and they were just like sketching over it. He's like, yeah, I lived through that. And then we had Revit and then CAD, and so this is a person who like grew up designing and architecting buildings, like writing it on a pencil that was like translucent. And then a recent customer design partner was like, we're starting a new MEP firm. I think they're like in their young 20s. And they're literally exploring every possible tool for every piece of the workflow because they want to have an AI native tool for their MEP like consultancy. So you have these both spectrums of the people who have been there and done that and seen the technology as it evolves. And then the younger generation is realizing like, there's a lot of complicated workflows that are manual. Let's just like not do those right now and see who fits into our current workflow so we can actually spend more time.
No, I love that mindset coming from the industry, because I'll tell you this. So more and more of my clients, because what I see on them is this. I see that, before you would go straight to the engineer and say, hey, I need to design this. I need, whatever, I need to like fill this with in like ventilation or renovate or whatever. You go to them first, and, then you look for tools to save yourself time. But now it's the opposite. You actually look at tools first and then like try to get to the certain like draft of things, and then you go to the expert for like help. Whatever you're designing, even if you're baking cookies, you're first gonna check it out online, check recipes, test it out, and then you go to the expert of like, hey, I want to bake this or like this exact cake for my birthday or whatever. So I think that's a big mindset shift. So I really like, hey, this is such a good example you said about these guys, and I hope they're not gonna lose that, because things are changing. Things are changing in the industry, because like, why is MEP taking a lot of hours? Why? On tagging, there you go. So
Yeah.
so
there is tagging, but there is also a mindset, and like we're trying to make sure that we express a mindset or a philosophy like where we respect the judgment of the designers and engineers, and not trying to like replace you, because there is a older generation of people who their first response, and I've experienced this myself because like I look a little bit younger, I come from like a tech guy. They'll be like, "Who the heck are you? Like, why are you here? Have you ever been on a construction project? AI? No thanks." And they respond with like criticism and like a wall and like a barrier. But that fundamentally comes from the fact that they believe that you haven't taken the time to earn their respect or respect their perspectives, right? And so for all of those that are a little bit more curmudgeon or like stuck in your own ways, realize that the world, generally speaking, changes. We just welcome you to come in and embrace that change in the best way for you, right? We're not trying to like disrespect you or like dishonor your like the way that you approach designing and engineering buildings. But if you have a conversation with us, we can then encode those perspectives into rules and things that make your work and your life a little bit better.
No, I think it's really impressive what you guys did, especially because there's no, as you said, Eli, as well, there's no like correct answer to this. It's not like green or red. It can be green, red, yellow, pink, whatever. You can move it around and so on. So
Matter of taste.
yeah. All right, guys, listen, I am done with my questions personally. I think that you presented really well. I think you showed us the benefits of the app. I think it's all good. Do you have any like things you want to still mention or last things to say and so on?
Jefferson, what you said about the older generation of MEP engineers, they're like, hey, you can't do this. Like, wait a second. I gotta say that I have a lot of respect for them, and especially the more I learn about the whole MEP space, I realize how complex it is, and I realize also how long it will take us to develop all the other tools we're working on, and routing, MEP systems in 3D and all these other challenges are immensely difficult. And only by working on these problems, you start understanding why there are no available tools in the market that people trust, because the challenge is so big. And it doesn't necessarily make it a bad thing. It's an interesting challenge, but it's very hard. And I do have a lot of respect for these people. And it is what MEP engineers do is very, very complicated. And the fact is that it's so complicated, you can't tell a computer like how to do it in a certain number of steps. It just doesn't work that way, at least not yet.
Yeah, so basically come work with us because we'll take your perspective into account. We're not trying to say we'll do everything the right way the first time. Like we as a matter of fact know that we will not. So the best way that we can do that is through engaging partnerships and like taking into account your experience.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, guys. No, I agree. It is complicated. If you ever see like a data center with all of its routing and electrical cables and whatnot, and cooling and heating and so on, or a hospital, or like a pharmacy or like a pharmaceutical plant or something, it gets crazy.
Yeah, I'll really shout out Dustin Schaefer. He has like a really good framework for it. It's like if one variable changes, that changes the other variable, and therefore the variable that depends on that variable changes. So it's like we're operating in a multivariate space. That the best thing that we can do with software is try to reduce the search space or the possible plausible scenarios and solutions for that multi-point problem. Because like if an architect comes in and he shifted 3 rooms and consolidated them into 1, then that affects the heating and cooling loads, and then that affects how you size that thing, and then now the routing is different, and now the materials that you use is different. So it's not black or white, like you were saying. It's not this or that. It's nuanced.
Yes. All right. Awesome, guys. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. Any last words?
No, thank you
very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time.
I feel like it's been a long time coming. Jefferson, I've seen your posts all over LinkedIn, and I think it's awesome. So thank you so much for being active in that space too. Eli, super nice to meet you. Yes, so let me just put you off the screen then. That was it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you're still live, I appreciate you so much. We're going to be live soon with another demo. Just follow me on LinkedIn to learn more. And one more exciting thing. I am launching a really cool thing called an AI workflow map very soon, which can help you map out your workflows and then probably figure out maybe Bimrock is your tool to use afterwards. So if you want access to it, again, follow LinkedIn, sign up for the newsletter, and we're going to be posting about that very soon. Anyways, that was it from us. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, have the rest, like a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.